Hello, people of the internet. So in this video, we're going to learn about Express and MySQL. This video is for those aspiring developers who use Apache servers and relational databases. If you don't have any experience in those two, you might want to experience this first because it might be hard. But this framework that we're gonna talk about, that we're gonna learn, is actually easy to get your hands on. It's easy to learn, it's easy to understand. So maybe it's fine, but it's good to know. It's good to know the basics first of dealing with relational databases, especially any SQL databases out there. So it's also good that this will be your first. I know some experienced developers aren't quite familiar with the no SQL databases like MongoDB or Couchbase. I myself am not familiar as well, so it is something that I've been working on these past few days since the lockdown because of that coronavirus. So I might upload a video about Node.js together with MongoDB soon. So if you're watching this video, I assume you know something about Node.js. If not, even though you might understand how this works, you might want to know the basics and fundamentals of Node.js first. So yeah, anyway, Express. What is Express? By definition, in their web page or in their documentation, Express is a minimal and flexible Node.js web application framework that provides a robust set of features for web and mobile applications. So, Express is a backend or server side framework specifically for Node.js, and unlike Laravel for PHP or Django for Python, it's less complicated than those two. So Express is a lightweight web application framework, and it helps us organize our application architecture. So we can have varieties of templating languages, just like EJS, Jade, or Dust. And we can also use databases with this. You just have to install uh, libraries such as later we're going to use MySQL. We have to install the MySQL library for Node.js. Also, we can use Mongo with it, uh, and many more. Prerequisite for this course is basic JavaScript. So first of all, you need to learn the basics or the fundamentals of JavaScript. So just like you did with Node.js, you need that skill here. JSON, of course, JSON. We're gonna deal with JSON API later on our MySQL part of the video. So also we need to know about HOF or high order functions, uh, like our high order array functions. So like map, for each, filter, and reduce. So stuffs like that, you need to know that as well. We also need to know arrow or lambda functions. Most of my callbacks will be using lambda functions. I won't use the old or traditional way of naming functions or creating functions. So yeah, arrow functions, and then postman. You don't need to know this, although it's nice if you have some background about Postman. What is Postman? Postman is a HTTP client, so it's a GUI client, and most of our HTTP requests we will use Postman for it, like delete, post, put, get. So when we build our APIs, Postman is a really great tool. And yeah, that's it for Postman. So another thing is basic DBMS, so database management systems that you know of. MySQL, SQL Server, Postgres, those are the most famous DBMS out there. So it's good to have knowledge about them. Also SQL. So standard query languages. Although I'm gonna show you how what the standard query languages are, the most common ones later. It's also good if you know. I think you'll get this course faster if you know about those stuffs already. So let's get started. First I made a folder named ExpressDB and I want to initialize it with npm. So npm init dash y because I have to say yes to all. It's quite slow. All right, and then we want to install Express as a node module. So npm install Express dash dash save because we just want it in this folder. We don't want to install it globally or somewhere else. Oh, yep, this might take, no, it will be fast. It won't take long. So, yep, that's it. All right, and then we want to install a tool called nodemon. So npm install nodemon and save it as a dev dependency. So nodemon is simply a tool that monitors changes in our server file. So every time we change, we have changes, or we press Control S or save it, it restarts the server right away. So we don't have to rerun our server file every time we make a change. So yep. Okay, now it's done. So clear that, and then here in our package.json we need to add a script. So script will be dev and then nodemon. First, let's make a server file called server.js. So let's leave it empty. So nodemon server.js. Okay, so here we can run npm run dev, and what it will do is it will run this script right here because it's called dev, and then it'll listen. Nodemon listens to our server file now, so every time we press Control S, it will restart the server. So for example, I have here console.log test, and we save it. It will start the server and it'll show us test. So if we don't have this, since we'll make a lot of changes, development might take longer. So yeah, first thing is we have to import Express. So const express equals require Express. So yep, that's it. And after importing Express, we have to initialize it in a variable. So since Express is a class, we need to initialize it. So Express. So what I did here is I initialize Express to the app variable. So since Express is a class, now app has all the property and all the methods of Express. So here, after that, the first thing you want to do if you're creating a server is you want to listen to a port. So app dot listen. Oh, I forgot. I have to declare my port in a variable so that it can be easily changed. So 5500 app listen to the port and then a callback. Server running on port. So if you look for app.listen, it's actually It's actually a method in HTTP module as well. Uh, server.listen is actually the same. So in Express, it accepts a mm, a port and a callback. So a callback can accept errors, or in this case, I won't put any parameter in that callback. So I just, oh yeah, let's put an error handler. So error, if error, and throw error. So that's how I'll handle that error for now. Alright, so now that we have an app, let's actually check it. So let's exit those things. So localhost colon 5500 forward, just enter. So it will throw an error at first. The reason for this is that the default endpoint when we enter this URL is a slash. So slash is a route. So that's the index route. And since we did not have a method to get or to listen to this route for that event, for the get event, by default it throws an error called cannot get forward slash. So we need to initialize it here. So the way to do this is to app.get. By default, your browser, when loading pages, uh, it's always an HTTP GET request. So we always need to have or declare a route handler for that. Uh, Here I can throw a the route path, and then a callback with request and response. So this is the way of how Express handles route requests. So first we have the get or any method here, as long as this parameter is the route path, and then this is a callback with request response. So this request response here is actually an object. So these have functions, these have values, and we're gonna discuss, or are you gonna see the use of those things later on. For now, we need to have a response every time the user goes to this URL right here, which is localhost 5500, and then we can just type rest.send. So what we're doing is we're sending something that the user may see. So we can type hello world for now, and then that's it. So hello world. Okay, so that's the basic way of handling routes in our server. So this is one way of sending responses in our browser to our browser. So rest.send, whatever string you put in here will be sent here as long as you go to this route, index route. So if we change it, if we add another route handler for example this test, let's write the response test. If we open our browser and then go to that route, it will send us tests as well. So whatever you put inside here is our action for this route. Let's try to send files, actual files. So let's try to send in HTML files in the browser. So I already made a file here inside a folder index, and I want to send that to the browser every time this every time we go to the index route. So instead of hello world, we'll actually send a file uh, as a response. So one way to do that is rest.send file. Oops, I forgot to import the path module. Require path. So, sorry, it was deleted. Okay. Path.join your name and then this index.html. So this code will send the file inside this folder. So the dir name, the directory, and then joined with this / index.html. So every time we go to this route, so every time we go to the index route, this HTML will be rendered instead. So let's try it. There you go. So whatever we change here, so this is a page, will be rendered as our response. That is one way of rendering an HTML file as our response. So, but that isn't the best way, because if we have multiple pages, we'll have multiple route handlers as well, and it'll make our code longer. So in Express, we can actually make it make a folder into a static folder. So everything inside that folder, for example, we have multiple HTMLs in that folder. It can put a route handler to everything inside. So if we want to serve uh, plenty of pages like about blog pages, uh, that static folder that we declare using Express will give routes to those files inside it. So the way to do that in Express is we're going to use the Express method static, which I'm going to show you. So here, so this is the best way right here. App.use. So I'll explain app.use later on. So app.use express.static. So express static makes a folder into a static path. So every time we access that file as a route, we can actually read it as an HTML file. So what I'll send in here is the path to our folder that we want to make static. So rename this. So now everything inside here is a static file that has routes in it. So we can access it. We can access everything here as a static file. So if we add, for example, a new file, if we add, for example, a new file called contact.html, let's just copy this here. This is a contact page. If we go to the browser and access that route here, this is right here. Is it loading so long? Alright, so there it goes. So if we go to our index route, it's lagging. What happened? App crash object create. Oh, I forgot to join the path. Path.join. Sorry for that. Okay, no more errors. So, yep, let's restart it. Refresh. There you go. So everything inside this folder can be rendered to our HTML because everything now inside that folder is static. So each and every thing inside this folder has a get or has a route listener in it. for it. I mean, so yep, that's how you handle multiple static pages in Express. So I won't go deeper in Express. We'll learn about Express methods along the way. So Express isn't usually used in serving static HTML files as you may have experience as a developer. You can serve static files in GitHub pages, for example, for free, and there are many more servers out there that serves static HTML files. So Express isn't usually used in serving static HTML files. It is mostly used in building Restful APIs, JSON APIs, so you can use it on front-end frameworks such as Angular, React, Vue, or Svelte. Or you can use it on building dynamic pages or apps rather than just static, because it is a really powerful framework. So let's go to the next part of our video. This is integrating Express with MySQL after all. So, yep. So the next part of our video is about MySQL. So MySQL comes in as a node package. So this is the way to communicate with our database. So we need a library for it. So we just install it. And here you make sure you have a make sure you have SAMP or make sure you have MySQL in your computers and make sure it's running. For me, I installed SAMP. So SAMP is a cross-platform Apache or MariaDB, MySQL, PHP, and Perl server. So it is a lightweight Apache distribution that makes it extremely easy for developers to create a local web server for testing purposes or for development. So everything needed to set up a web browser is in SAMP. Uh, it is cross-platform, as I mentioned earlier, so you can install it in Linux or in Mac. So, yep. Now that I have started my SAMP, I can I should install the MySQL library. So npm has a documentation about MySQL as well. You can see here it's pretty simple. Just like PHP, if you have experience in PHP, you have we won't include it of course in PHP, but we have our database credentials and then connect and then query. So it's pretty simple. Now we have to install uh, it in our as our package module. So as our node module. So pem install let's just save. Let's wait for it to be installed. This might take long, not long enough, I hope. And while that's installing, for me, I like to separate my database file into a folder. So I'll make a new folder called db, and in that folder, just index.js. So everything inside my db folder or index or db file is my database. So it's taking long. Right. I'll be back. So I'm back. Finally, it installed it. So here, since uh, since MySQL or MySQL actually it comes as a node module, I'm just gonna require it, or we can copy this. You can actually copy this and just change that to const and make it shorter. So here, just copy paste const, and yep. So I didn't make a user yet, so it's better to show you how to do that in XAMPP as well. Admin. So MySQL gives us the ability or XApp gives us the ability to have PHPMyAdmin by default. So if you click this, it'll open a portal leading to PHPMyAdmin in our browsers. So let's wait for that to open. Why is it taking long? What happened? It's usually fast. There you go. Finally. So let's create a new user. So user accounts. Let's add a new user called Node.js. Node.js. Oh, it already exists. Let's do Express.js. And then any host, local host. So you can just do this. Password will be password, and grant all privileges. Let's click go. So now we have our user. We need to make our database for our user. So let's just name it the same as our user, Express.js. I already have ExpressDB here, so it's okay. Express.js. Create. So now we have that. So now we have our MySQL database credentials. So user equals Express.js, and password is just password, and database is just the same with our user. And let's not query first. So let's just make it short. Con, and then let's export. So, connection. Here I want a error handler, so I can actually throw a callback in our connect function. So I'm just gonna copy this. Now let's just make an arrow function for it. Error. Alright, so if there's an error, we throw the error. And now if we don't have an error, console.log connected contacted, can't even spell that right, connected to database. Alright, so let's export that. Export modules, module dot export equals db. So it will export everything here. So let's include that in our server.js. So const db equals require db. We don't actually need to specify the file since it's an index.js. So yep, in our exports db. Right, so const db. Yep, is that it? Yeah, so I forgot to make an object. So now it says connected to database. So we can have a bunch of queries here. First, let's try, let's actually make a query. So first, first you want to create a table. So create table. Create table. So const SQL equals select create table test table, and inside I want to make ID uh, int auto increment, and then first name char 80, then last name char 80 again, primary key 80. So this will do it for query. So one.query, just like here in our MySQL Node.js npm documentation. It's so simple. So just query it, and if after the query you have a callback which has three parameters: error, result, and then the fields. The fields are just the column names of your table. Result is actually the rows in uh, object object format, so it's in JSON format already. So yep, so we can do that. Con query SQL, and then I'll just pass in the callback error, then result. We don't need result at this time. Let's just do the error. So if there's an error, throw error. Oops. And then if we don't have an error, let's console.log table created successfully, and let's try that. So this is just to show you that you can already use this query, and you can use this function. So it's an object function. You can use this to create tables. So you can query. Now have access to the MySQL databases, and you now have the power to query anything you want there. So this is one way. So to do that, we have here. Should we go to our route? Actually, no. You can just we'll go to the route. We'll use the browser later. So db dot create table, and if we call that, press Control Save. Let's wait for it. Table created successfully. So if we go to our PHP My Admin now, we should see a table named test table. So let's go there. Express.js. Let's refresh it. This might take a while again. There you go. My table, test table should appear there with the columns. With the columns ID, first name, and last name. So yep, there it is. Now that we have that, let's try creating an API. But first, we need to know about our HTTP methods for building a Restful API. So these are methods for CRUD operations. So create, retrieve, update, delete. So these methods are HTTP GET, so post, put, delete, patch, and I'll explain it to you one by one. So first, we have the get method, HTTP get method. So get method is used to retrieve resources or data. Then the get method do not change the state of a resource or data. So mainly, HTTP get method is used to retrieve data from your data collection or your database, or whatever type of data collection you have. So that's the use of the HTTP get method. As you have seen earlier, we use the get method, app.get, because as I said earlier, by default, requesting a page for in your browsers, or if you put a URL there, by default it's a get method. Then next is HTTP post method. So HTTP post method is used to create a new data or a file. So the post method should strictly be a method to create a new resource or data. So post method, uh, it's strictly in terms of post methods. These are only used to create new datas inside your data collection or database. So we have an HTTP method for updating as well. You should never use post for updating data inside your data collection. So we have the put method. So HTTP put method is used to update an existing data. And if the data that you want to update does not exist in your data collection, so this method should create uh, the new data that you want to update. So uh, last not least, we have HTTP delete. So delete, from the word itself, the delete method is used to delete data. If we delete the data, it should be removed from the data collection. So I think it's pretty clear what delete does. So I think those are the four most important HTTP methods that we have. So yep, let's begin building our APIs. So the first thing we want to do if we're building our API is to be prepared. So we should have a tool for testing our API. I use Postman because I'm more comfortable using it. So Postman is a great tool when trying to dissect Restful APIs or APIs, or JSON APIs. So it is uh, it is an HTML client for handling HTTP requests. We have here get, post, put, batch, delete, and many more. So, but we're gonna use the four requests, which is delete, get, post, put. So we'll use that. So make sure if you want to follow this video, you can install Postman in your machines, or if you want, I believe there's a VS Code extension for HTTP requests, so it won't be heavy in your computers, but I'm more comfortable with Postman, so I use that. First, we want to make a mockup data for us to for us to use our get method. So I'll create a new data in our test table. So just press that in Express.js. This might take a while. All right. Insert. All right. That's one I was looking for. So let's just leave ID since I already have a value for this. It's already auto increment, and it starts from 0. So Joshua Clan, my name, and then John Doe, and then press go. So I now have. Ooh, I had a mistake. The last name is null. I can just update it. Set first name equals to John. Oh, no, you know what? Let's just leave it there and use a put method, HTTP put method to update that one later. The point here is that I have two datas. So if I go to, just press yes. If I look at my table, it'll show two data. First being Joshua Clan, and then the second being John Doe, but it doesn't have a last name. And so we'll use a get request. But first we need to have a function in our database that retrieves all the data. So get all. I'll just name it get all, function get all. And then, oops, no. Then I want this to be a promise to make sure that the browser waits for it to be finished and it will load our data correctly. So return new promise, and then just resolved reject. Right, so now it's a promise. We can create our SQL query here. SQL equals select from this table. So what this query does, it just simply selects all the data from our table, test table. So con.query. You know what? Let's just copy this one. And earlier, as you have seen here earlier, we have here a 3 parameters, just like I mentioned earlier. So this has first the error, and then the result, and then the fields. But we don't want the fields, we just want the result. So we can just if error, let's just return it. Return, since it's a promise, we want to reject that error. Yep, that's it. And then if there's no error, we want to return the resolve, and then result. So we want that. Okay, I guess that's it for our get API if we want to get all the data from our database. So yep, let's initialize it here in our server.js. So we'll use the get method for this since we're just getting data. Our URL, our router path will be API/users. Okay, I think that's fine. And then here we have actually, let's make that into an async because we need to wait for that promise to be resolved. It's basic async await functionality. So yep, async requests. There's an error. We're not done yet, so just ignore that for now. Oops, wrong spelling. So now it's an async callback to make sure it waits for this promise. Right. And then here I'm gonna try just try catch. Just a simple try catch. Error. And let's try let result equals to await. Since we're waiting for that promise to finish, db.get all. Then rest.json result. So you can, the response could be in JSON format or a file format. For now, since we're dealing with APIs, we want it to be in JSON format. So catch error, just rest.send error. And now we have a get method for our API. We can have we can access now this route. So in our Postman, we can do localhost. There you go. So if I send this, I should have a response of all the data from my database. Sending. It's taking so long. Could not get any response. That's because my port is 5,500. I mean. So sending request again. There you go. It's loading. So it's retrieving something from the database. The status is okay. Oops, it lagged. Oh, why didn't it get anything? What happened here? Okay, wrong variable name, that's why. Let's restart the server and then send a request once more. There you go. So what we have here is a collection of data in JSON format from our database. So we have our get request, so that's one way of doing it. And then what else? Post. So let's try to input some data in our database. So let's input data one by one. For now, you can actually loop through a JSON array to put multiple datas. So here, insert data. So insert data. Let's just copy this one. So my data will be in object format. So insert into test table. And since I mentioned earlier, you can input JSON data in your databases, but you're gonna look through it. But for now, I'm just showing you how to put the data in your database one by one. But you'll get the concept of it. It's actually the same. So data equals first name Jane, then last name Doe. So we have our Jane Doe, we have our John Doe. First name, last name, and then values question mark. So that's one way. And then here we have our SQL and then our data. So there you go. We have our insert data. We have a query for our insert data. Now we have to declare a post method for our API. So post after post await. You know what? Oops, it lagged. That's why it lagged. So db.insert data. And we want the response to be just a text. So if reject error and the result, we don't need a result when we're entering data into the database. So just data inserted to database. And in our server, let's just type rest.send results. So this is a post method, and let's change it to user because we're just inserting one user. So here we want to change this into a post method. So yep, here we go, this user. And if I send this, I should enter a data inside their database. So parse error, so there was an error. Values, oh, this shouldn't be values. My bad, it should be set. Okay, let's try it again. Send. You have an error again. Let's try removing these fields. Insert into data table. There you go, data inserted into database. And to make sure it's actually inserted, let's do another get. So send. So there's your data, Jane Doe. And second to the last method, HTTP method, is put. Here we want to we want to make a query in our database that updates the data. So update data, and then say function. Let's just copy this. Since we're updating data, we want to pass a parameter ID because we're going to use that ID. And then here, MySQL has this SQL statement that accepts the checks if the data already exists, and if the data exists in the database, it deletes it, and then if the data already exists, it automatically updates it. And then you might have heard of it. It's called replace. This one. So this replaces data in our databases. If the data is existing, if the primary key is existing, since we're gonna pass our primary here, the primary key here, ID. If the data is existing, then it will just update it. But if it's not, it will insert it. So that's how you want your put data, since put requests, as I mentioned earlier, it is primarily to update an existing data. And if it's not existing, it's going to insert the new data in your database or your data collection. So here, that's it. So that's our query. So data updated instead of inserted. Okay, and then we must call that. So here we'll declare and put action listener. So here API update and then the ID. So this is how you throw in a parameter in Express. And after that, we want async. Let's just copy this. Request update data. And then here, as I mentioned earlier, you're gonna learn about this requests and response. So these are objects. We have used response quite a lot now, so it has many object functions. So it has methods inside it, send file, JSON, like this one earlier. And now we're gonna use the request object, which has the ability to get HTTP requests, especially this parameter. And the way to get that parameter is to use the params function, rec.params, this one. And then the params gets all the objects, or however, how many, it treats this ID as an object. So whatever you put here, for example, name. So this is a new object. ID and name is an object for params. So, but in this case, we want the ID object. So just do that, delete that name. And then I think we're good to go. Update data. Let's try it. So what we want to happen is we want to update this this ID here. So I have my put requests already on, API update, and the ID number is 2. So send. Cannot put. Why cannot put? I think. Oh, alright. I forgot the slash before the API. So let's try again. There you go. Data updated. To make sure we have data updated, let's try and use our get method. API users. There you have it. So it updated it into Jane though. Let's update it again. It should be John, right? Put. Let's change the data. Let's actually change the data. So, oops, since I just copied it. John. Okay. Update to. data updated, post users. No, not post. We should get data. So that's it for the put request, put HTTP request. So now we're in our last part of the video, which is the delete method. So here, let's just copy this actually. And then let's just delete this. Change this delete from test table. Oops, test underscore table where ID is equals to that question mark. And ID here, let's change this into delete. So delete is pretty easy, just copy paste the update data and delete some variables and just change the query. So it's really good to understand the basic standard query language for this course because you'll easily catch up. So delete from test underscore table where ID is equals to this ID, or we're gonna pass here. So data deleted for our response, and then here you want to add a HTTP request listener. So delete. Let's just do delete. So the same thing. Let's just change the object function. So delete data, and I think that's it. Let's just change this into delete. Delete. Let's delete number 3. Send. Data deleted. So actually I forgot to discuss HTTP status code. So your responses should be, if it's a real RESTful API, should be HTTP status codes. But yeah, it's nice to have some topic next videos. So if you find this video useful, this is now the conclusion part of our video. If you find it useful, then you might want to like and subscribe and wait for more videos to come. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions or any suggestions, since this is my first video, got nervous along the way, so yeah, you can put it in the comments below. So thank you for listening. See you on the next one.